we can't forget about running a great business. We cannot forget about running a great business. As much as we want to grow our business and be strategic and do the next deal, which of course we want to do that, we cannot take our eye off the ball of we have 2,000 people to take care of. We have a vibrant business model we're already running, and shareholders are like, we can't ever lose the core.
Oil and gas makes modern life possible. The energy the world requires today and tomorrow will come from decisions made in the oil field today. Oil and gas will remain the leading source of fuel to power affordable energy that is sustainable for the billions of people that depend on the success of the industry. The oil field is a group of people, companies, technologies, and institutions working towards providing the world with safe, clean, storable, and transportable power. The Oilfield 360 podcast is a 360-degree deep dive into the leaders of the industry, who will provide listeners with a first-hand account of what it takes to build, maintain, and lead the energy business into the future. The Oilfield 360 podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: Lockton Global Energy and Marine, uncommonly independent. Lockton is the world's largest privately owned insurance broker and risk finance advisor. Lockton's global energy expertise is centered in Houston and represents the largest concentration of energy specialists, clients, and experiential knowledge in the upstream, midstream, and downstream segments of the oil and gas industry. Visit Lockton.com for more information. Upright Digital. Upright Digital specializes in partnering with your business to maximize marketing efficiencies. We have a deep understanding of people, their needs, motivations, behaviors, as well as the technologies that enable brands in many industries to utilize what is available in a changing digital landscape. Find us online at uprightdigital.com.
Welcome to the Oilfield 360. I'm David DeRode, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jim Wicklund. We appreciate you joining us again. Jim, how are you this morning?
Fabulous. Beautiful day in Houston.
Well, it's good to have you here. We're joined by a really good friend of ours. Would you like to introduce her this morning?
Melissa Cougle, I have known for several years through several iterations of business, professional organizations, and she is a spark plug and a firecracker all at the same time. And the life we were talking briefly about earlier about one of her life experiences, and she is obviously not only one of the most accomplished CFOs in the business, but she's fun and daring too. So I'd like to, Melissa, welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
We appreciate being here. It's good to, we've known each other for a number of years in various capacities, and
Absolutely.
glad we finally got you in the studio on the
hot
360,
seat.
in the hot seat. Yeah, absolutely. But we appreciate you joining us. We typically like to kind of have a bio presented to our audience, and we're hoping you might be able to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how you got into the oil and gas business.
Sure. Bio. Okay, so I have lots of these written up, but some of
Those are no fun.
Those are no fun. I agree. I'm actually from Louisiana, so I am.
Where?
I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay.
So I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Are you a Tigers fan?
I graduated from LSU.
Okay.
I didn't spend my entire tenure there, but I graduated from LSU. It was the last place I thought I would go. So I was ready, probably.
Why is that?
Well, because as Jim would put it, the firecracker runs deep and has always. So I was busy, ready, to go set the world on fire, and I wasn't going to stay in small town Baton Rouge. I was going to go big or go home.
Yeah.
I did both. So I started out at LSU because, frankly, it was the most pragmatic. My generation was the first to actually get college degrees. But there was never a discussion point in my house. It was, you're going to get your college degree. So it was one of those understoods. But frankly speaking, finances were limited. So it was like, yeah, Melissa, you can go be big shot somewhere else. And just to let you know, when the money runs out, and it's on your dime, because that's just, the way life works. And so, so even back then I was a CFO at heart, and I was very pragmatic. And I was like, well, if I only got this one pile of money, I need to use it very wisely. And so I ended up starting at LSU. I did spend one year finding myself, which I think is something that's really worthwhile for everyone.
Where'd you go?
I went to George Mason University in D.C. Again, setting the world on fire. Went up there to become a lobbyist and all that fun stuff. Because I started out in engineering. So I'm one of those CFOs. Even though I was a CFO at heart, I didn't know it. I changed my major 5 times. So started out in engineering and very quickly realized I was not going to be an engineer. Science was not my thing, even though math was. And I moved to political science. I mean, it's sort of a thing in Louisiana, right? I mean, our politics history runs really deep and rich.
and
and
notoriety, don't forget
right.
that too. Yeah.
And at that point, I really wanted to kind of set out on my path, and find myself, because I was a bit lost.
How old are you at this point?
I turned 20 in D.C.
Okay.
So I had a friend that had gone, some close friends of mine had moved up there. And so I went up there to find myself for a year. Was a cashier at Bed Bath & Beyond, and went to George Mason University part-time. And that was when I took my first business classes and got my first itch. Took my first accounting class up there, actually, as well. And I was one of the few classes I was like, it was hard for everybody to get good grades. And I actually had a girlfriend that I made friends with at the Bed Bath & Beyond, and she kind of actually tutored me. And once I kind of figured out the mix, and it sounds really mundane because everybody thinks bookkeeping is really, really mundane. But once I figured out like the whole system of dual entry accounting and sort of unlocked the puzzle, it was quite interesting to me because it was a bit of a puzzle being unlocked. So, but a year later, as luck would have it, or life intervenes, I actually wrecked my car up there. And by that time, I was really missing my family. That was the, I really was missing my family.
Sure.
And so I went back home a year later. It was enough for me to realize and start to find my way and find my footing. And I went back home and went back to LSU and finished up there.
Can't stay introverted and a wallflower, taking the chance and risk, and at 19 or 20, at 19, moving to D.C. away from comfort of family to make your mark on the world.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I would tell you, my family, I was always a speak up with my family. I always felt comfortable with my family. But other people, it wasn't. I was always very, very concerned, hesitant. I was a very tentative child. And I see so much of that in my daughter today. It's unbelievable. Somebody asked me, like, who does she take her? I'm like, oh, that was me at that age, made over. But that year, it sounds so funny, but going and get a job on your own is huge, right? I mean, I got a job at 16 because my mother drove me to the grocery store and she said, you're getting a job because you just turned 16. But when I moved to a new city and I walked in and I got a job on my own, that's an empowering experience.
It is.
And then to get your first promotion all on your own is an empowering experience. The world works on networks, but I think we underestimate when you can do something all on your own, how much confidence I could build, particularly in formative years. So I would tell you that one year, it did a lot for me to set the course of my life.
We helped my daughter as she was going through college get jobs during the summer and different things. And then she got a job on her own when she graduated. And like I say, it was just the most empowering thing. She's never been so proud of herself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that it was a dramatically different, it's just that she did it. So I can imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
okay, so you graduated from LSU.
Yes.
Armed with an accounting degree?
I did.
And then you went immediately to...
I went immediately to Arthur Andersen. So I actually did my college internship, my little hidden fact that's not on my resume, not because I'm ashamed of it, but you don't put your college internships on your resume at 48, but or 47, I have to clarify, but on my way. But I did an internship at Enron. But at that internship over the summer, it was a regular traditional accounting internship, but that's where I realized I did not want to be a traditional accountant. But I met Arthur Andersen team. And they kind of came in and they learned in my job 2 weeks, and they gave me a bunch of recommendations how to approve it. And then they turned around and went and did something else. And I was like, oh no, I need that job. That's going to be a way more interesting job. So I picked up the phone and I called the team and I said, hey, would you hire me? And it's funny, back then, they called me the same thing. They said, yeah, you're a firecracker. We want you. And I said, okay. Well, my one condition, I don't want to go back to Enron. I've been there, done that. I want to see the world and do different stuff. And so I moved to Houston a year later, and I started Arthur Andersen, kind of in a, I was part of the audit practice group, but I did what was something called risk assurance.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did internal audits, forensic accounting, a little bit of mishmash. We did a lot of the prep work for the regular audit team. A lot back then, Bree Sarbanes-Oxley, we did what was called management recommendation letters. So it was where you go back in, you talk to the audit teams, they tell you everything that they saw that was kind of messed up at the company, and you put it in a nice little letter and say, hey, if you want to be better and get through a cleaner audit next year, go do this stuff. So I call it the pre-Sarbanes-Oxley. So we did a lot of all that stuff for a few years until I found myself at Pride International was my client.
What year was that?
2002. So my last Arthur Andersen client was Pride International. My first Protiviti, because the practice group I was in, this was, we very quickly found myself embroiled in the saga that turned into Enron. And I was out at Pride at the time. We became the founding members of what is now the organization called Protiviti. So they sort of hired the whole practice group in mass in one day. But then Pride was my first Protiviti client. And a few years later, a couple of years into Sarbanes-Oxley, I kind of decided that was the primary focus of the firm because it had just been introduced.
Yeah.
And that was not going to be my thing. And that was not going to be my career. So I decided I needed to pivot. And it just so happened that there was a gentleman that was a very strong mentor for me, crazy smart guy. And I had worked a lot with him. He took an expat gig in Angola, which created an opening. And Pride said, well, we appreciate you don't want to do SOX, but come work for us. And they needed a lot of just help and triage. They had some rough go of it, kind of in the 4, 5, 6 time frame. And they were like, we want to internalize the cleanup crew, and we want you to kind of help lead it on the finance side.
What was your title?
My first title was Assistant Controller of Processes and Systems.
How old were you?
This was 2005, so, late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was when I went corporate.
Who was at the helm then?
Paul Bragg?
Yeah.
Actually, so I started when Lewis had just taken over.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was in the middle of kind of all of the turmoil back then. So I started at Andersen and Protiviti. We worked with Paul. He was kind of trying to do the cleanup. Management turnover, Lewis came in, and that's whenever I kind of officially joined.
Great guy.
Yeah. I'm privileged to continue to be able to work with him on the Tidewater board once again.
That's right.
Super thoughtful man.
Offshore drilling. Talk to us about what next.
That's really did everything in offshore drilling, and ultimately 15 plus years later, there was nothing else. Hate to say it, you find yourself.
You were at Pride for 15 years,
and then Insco. So Insco came along and bought Pride, and they needed more systems. So then I became director of systems and financial and management reporting and systems. I've done a lot of pseudo IT work. I did earlier in my career, but I found
you can fix Jim's phone.
I can fix Jim's phone. Yeah.
Okay.
Or I'll call my husband who works in IT, and then he'll just complain. But that I volunteered him for something. But I did. So I found myself in my early 40s, and both my Pride and Insco experiences were phenomenal. I got treated like royalty. I had a new job every 18 months. I think my longest gig was 3 years. Worked for some incredible people. Had some awesome opportunities. But you find yourself in your early 40s. My kid, I had a child. I knew we weren't going to be growing our family more too at that point, right? Yeah. So I knew it was going to be a one child. And it was kind of like, well, if you stay too much longer, this is your career. Is what it felt like, at least. Maybe that wasn't true, but that's certainly what it felt like.
Yeah, I would think so. Way.
And there was a little bit of like, you need to see what you can do, Melissa. It felt like it had just run its course. And so started reaching out and said, I want to think about doing something else. And a few months later, I got a call, and it was, hey, there's this new publicly traded company coming out there. It's a Middle Eastern oil field services company, and they want a CFO. I said, well, they can't want me. I'm an American woman. They're a Middle Eastern oil field services company. But indeed they did. And it was just sort of an offer that you couldn't pass up. I knew it was going to be really challenging.
It doesn't seem to scare you away of anything before.
Well, so it's funny. My mother said, like, I told her not to take that job. No, that's not true, Mom. Sorry, Mom, if you end up hearing this. But everybody was like, we all sort of knew it. Melissa, you can't pass up the opportunity. Oh. You can't. You know it's going to be hard, but why would you not try?
CFO of a publicly traded company for the first time?
Right.
No way.
Right.
You only get one turn, like we
You
talked
only are going to
about.
get one shot like that in your life, and so you need to go for it. And I don't. That was probably the hardest single professional year of my life, for sure. My daughter was only 6. I spent 40% plus of my time in the Middle East. I was doing work, although I had done, because I'd kind of done every single finance job at that point, except for taxes and probably IR. So I felt comfortable with all the different domains.
Sure.
I knew I could get on top of IR. And I'm smart enough I could figure it out, right? But the cultural differences and really getting to know the people, they were combining really two different well-established corporate entities there that had been private, plus sort of the SPAC entity that had come in, and trying to help them navigate the first year. It was really, really challenging.
So what was it like as a woman in a CFO role of a publicly traded company operating mainly in the Middle East?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can remember talking to Sharif in the interview process, and I kind of, because I'm known for being pretty frank and transparent,
Which is a good thing.
Well, yeah, it has its ups and its days. Fair enough.
I would say it's a very good thing. I would
say on the whole, it's a very good thing. But I can remember in the interview, I'm like, why would you even want me in this role? Because you can't possibly expect anybody there is going to listen to me.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, no. You mistake. That like, you're going to get there, and there is going to be a lot more respect than you can imagine. And there was a little bit of, and you're going to work for me, so we're going to make this happen. And I was quite surprised at, again, it's one of those gifts in hindsight. Difficult year of my life. Never kind of want to repeat it. Wouldn't give it up either.
Right.
So I call it my leathering year. I definitely got a lot of wrinkles that year, a lot of mental trauma that year, but a lot of it was of my own doing, if I'm being fair. Sort of busting my own conventions about what I can and can't do, the power that I can and I can't hold, what I can and can't say, and really sort of becoming a better leader. So I got a lot more respect than I expected. I can't say like there wasn't times, because I think it ended up varying. So there was a lot in the mix, but about a year in, I decided, okay, you've helped them get through their first year. You've learned a lot, and I felt good that I'd done right by the shareholders at that point. Sort of moving on and continuing my career in another direction.
Very good.
So how'd you find the next gig? Search firm, somebody call you, something in the Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, no. So I so funny enough, I had gone to, the things we do to second guess. I had gone to one of my mentors at the time. That was actually a gentleman that had been helping the company, NESR, that I was publicly traded. And I went to him. One of my first things when I decided I needed to move on, I actually asked him to lunch. And at the lunch, I looked at him and I said, look, I'm a year in as my publicly traded CFO. This is the way I'm feeling about my performance. And I want to do a little bit of a reality check. I feel like I can be a great CFO. I also feel like I'm not going to be the CFO I want to be if I continue to stay here. What do you think, though? You've seen me, and he was very well seasoned CFO of a couple publicly traded entities. And he said, you got it. And he was realistic about, here's what you need to work on. But no, I see you being very successful in this domain. But I appreciated having that perspective. And it turns out a few months later, he referred me. He got a call somebody said, hey, and this is Frank's, I need a publicly traded CFO kind of ready person. And at that point, I wasn't really screening because Nesser was sort of a lesser known entity.
Yep.
So I didn't screen on many recruiting screens when you go pull up the CFOs, but they made the right call. And then I got a phone call and said, hey, this company has a lot of problems they need to solve. Frank's International.
I took them public.
Because they had gone public, a few years before. They're on. You'll be their fourth public company CFO, working for their fourth public company CEO.
Door, yeah.
You're interested? And I was like, wow, okay. Well, this is another big risk, right? Because you now think you can do this, but you're going to go walk into another fire. And how you feel about that, Melissa? And there was a little bit of, I spent some time with the management team. I spent some time with the CEO, talking about what they felt they needed. And it just felt like what they needed was more what I did best, which actually was fostering a lot of trust, spending time, a lot of listening sessions, really more business partnership. They wanted a CFO to come in and really kind of help, lead a new path towards profitability. So it felt like a really comfortable fit when I started spending time with them. And I thought, what you got to lose? Life is short. We were talking about that earlier. Life is short. Go have the experience and see.
But, life would be boring if there weren't challenges. It's like I tell people that I work with all the time, if there weren't things that needed to be addressed, they wouldn't be talking to us.
Yeah, I think that's
we wouldn't have anything to do.
Yeah, well, and there's things, again, we kind of talked at the outset, it's learning a lot about yourself and who you are. Yeah. I am at heart a change agent. I'm probably never going to be, and figuring out where you play best in the world. As much as I sort of have craved more stability and balance in my life as I get older, at the same time, I've sort of realized my job is to fix things up. I'm not like the corporate turnaround, right? But if you want steady state, you probably don't pick up the phone and call Melissa.
John Gibson.
Yeah.
John Gibson worked for Halliburton, Flowtech recently, and several others along the way. When I first met him, he was president of Landmark Graphics. He's a brilliant man who's more full of BS than any 5 human beings alive, and that's one of the reasons I love him. But John was never great at running things.
Yeah.
But he was really great at fixing things and getting them going.
Yeah.
And he was a personality too. So I think there's a common trait among you guys.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. So I was given a mandate whenever I joined Frank's, and it was profitability and a strategic outcome for this company. We are not big enough to be relevant in this space. And the business model fundamentally, because we were so far flung, and it's really hard if you're kind of and we had one really amazing service line.
Yeah.
But there were no comps. There was
really hard,
no
right?
obvious strategic fits.
Right. And so we actually started, most people don't like to go read the merger background in a proxy, but I would argue the Frank's one is actually pretty interesting. And I wrote it as a bit of a memoir after we announced the deal, and we wanted to be really clear about the road that Frank's had been on and really do our shareholders justice to. I was like, well, we just took the first deal that came along. We started that process. We had a board member, and Carney, really kind of said, Melissa, we're going to start this process right now. So, I joined in June or May, and we started it, by July. We had, we picked a partner, and we said we want to set some goals for the company, and we want to start to really progress at those goals and see what it looks like on a go-alone strategy. We try to be intellectually honest. We think our bias is we have to get to a deal, but strategic outcome could have meant, grow organically. And so we really started a 2-year journey of evaluating capabilities of the company. What do we do really well? What do we feel like we need to be doing differently? That ultimately got us to pretty aggressively reaching out to a handful of people. That ultimately got us, doing the Dance with Expro team.
Yeah, I think that was probably a pretty good transaction.
Oh yeah, I feel really proud. That was my first really big strategic deal. I feel really good about the transaction itself. It was a lot harder for me to leave my team because I had a lot of turnover at Frank's when I joined.
Just a little.
Yeah, a lot of rebuilding of the finance function. So it was a lot of people that I had kind of known that didn't know each other, but I had spent and a lot of great Frank's people left, mostly not in Houston, but that I really grew to care about. And I sort of throw my whole heart, you know me well enough now on the inside, I sort of throw my whole heart into, my companies, and I had grown really, so I was quite content with not getting the job in theory. But then when it kind of came time and it was like, okay, you're not staying. I mean, it hurt. And you don't realize that. It's sort of like those one of the little known things is it hurt a lot more than I expected, and not for the reason I expected, but I just really struggled with leaving my team behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely developed some Frank's green blood for sure.
Yeah. I still have it today. I mean, yeah. I got a text earlier today and was like, hey, what you doing? I try to really keep touch with my team, try to make sure my team knows, like, once you're part of our family, if you will, and no matter where I'm working, I sort of have an obligation to you heretofore, sure. Whether you take me up on that or not, but know that I want to be there for you. And I have plenty of people that do, but I definitely started to have a little bit of green blood there.
So the Frank's Expro merger, obviously they've done well, performed well, segue into Ranger Energy Services.
Yeah. To be fair, if you would have asked me sort of as I was exiting Frank's Expro, hey, your next gig is going to be Ranger, I'd have been like, you are off your rocker. At the time, I thought, and this was back in the craze was, everybody's going green. Like you're a woman, and a lot, I think, as well, Melissa, you can have a job, and I got it developed a little bit of a complex. You're a woman, CFO, accomplished at this point. You're gonna have a job before you actually know it,
right?
Before you probably want it, and it didn't play out that way. And I was trying to be really picky, to be fair. I got pretty close, but I turned a lot of stuff down. And again, it's another one of those life lessons of a public company CFO. I didn't want to uproot my family. My daughter had just changed schools. My husband liked his job, so I was like, I don't want to leave. There's not a ton of public company CFO jobs that come. I mean, there's not like 3 that open every month. So
only one person there, yeah.
Right, and so that was so I didn't think Ranger would work, and Stuart would openly tell you he had to do some convincing. I felt like at times it was like I've only worked in international domain. U.S. land is, notorious for being hardest business to work in, most competitive market, lowest margins, tough to make money, and BT dubs, this is a well services company.
You gotta say, and on top of all that,
so I'd be like, hey Melissa, that's gonna be your next gig. I'd be like, no, not a chance. I got more in mind for myself than that. And I don't feel bad about saying that now because boy, again, I just keep learning these lessons in life of like you think one thing, and then you're just proven wrong time and again.
Challenge is a challenge.
A challenge is a challenge, and I'm so proud of the experience. I am so enjoying it. The business is so much more concentrated, so you can I have learned so much more about the business than I ever would have been able to had I gone to a different business that was far-flung across the world. Yeah. I can touch it. I can feel it. I can interact with our leaders, and we have these amazing leaders who have, at Ranger, it's the best P&L ownership that I've ever seen by the guys that are, because you almost have to have it. The business doesn't work if
they live and die by it every day.
They live and die by it every day. And so these are things like, because you think you're coming in with the conventions of what you learned in the past. And it's just been such an incredible experience.
Now, this isn't a 6-year contract. This is an hourly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can be 2 months later, you're like, I blinked my eyes, what happened? Mm-hmm. And it's really exciting. I would argue, like, I'm going to get less bored here than I've ever been at any other company because it moves so rapidly. It's very intimidating that way. But the U.S. land market, once your market moves so fast, you got to be on top of it constantly. I just did not have that appreciation before I joined.
I think y'all really shaped up a good team. I think
we have a great team.
The relationship you and Stuart have, I've seen it. It's really tight, which is good.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always admired about you is that your commitment and how you go all in if you're going to do it. And one of the things you and Simone did, I think it was for St. Baldrick's.
Yeah.
Supporting pediatric cancer, and so
Well done.
they went all in. Both Simone and Melissa shaved their heads.
Yeah.
And,
Well, it was
You shaved your head?
I did. I've actually shaved my head twice now.
Yeah, that's
over
right,
the
that's
past
right.
10 years. So it's a charity I've been involved in for a long time. A girlfriend of mine who actually had pediatric cancer had brought it to. I have a friend that was a bar owner down in the village.
Yeah.
And they brought this event, St. Baldrick's. So like some people run marathons to raise money for any number of causes. And
Guys shaving their heads is no big deal because we do stupid shit all of the time. Okay, and mohawks and mullets.
Yeah.
We have names for ours.
yeah,
I am incredibly impressed.
yeah.
That's impressive, girl.
She's always been intimidating, but she was really intimidating.
I
after she
can
shaved her head.
only imagine though. Large parts of me would like to.
Well, it was so. I mean, being involved in the charity, you're seeing this happen every year.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, so I mean, I was treasurer for, so the years that I haven't been that we held the event, I was treasurer. And so you're watching these people walk up on stage, and inevitably every year there's some woman that does it. And I can remember the year I kind of decided I should think about this. Because people would joke, like, whatever. But, and the first, there was a female firefighter that did it. And a few years later, there was this woman, her name was Celia. She had the most beautiful, her hair went down in the middle of her back, curly, like that beautiful dark curly hair. And she walked up on that stage and she shaved her head. And I remember leaning over to my friend at the time and I was like, well, I guess if she could do it, I should do it at some point. And then
That's amazing.
in the preceding years, I lost my father to cancer very quickly while I was pregnant with my daughter. And then a year later, I lost my brother's partner to cancer, and he had pediatric cancer. And it was only with the benefit of cancer treatments, he was a St. Jude patient, that he had lived another 15 years. But to die at 30, I'm going to tell you, is still not, it's not okay, right? Yeah. And so that was like, okay, this is my year. Very quickly, this is my year. So that was the first time I did it. And my daughter was only 18 months. And because it had kind of been in our family and she had been going to events, there was some discussion, should we do it one day in the future as a family? And we had brought it up to her once, a few years before we ultimately did it. And she was like, no. And we said, okay, this is not her thing. And we just sort of dropped it. And it was a couple of years later. And, I still kind of ask her to the day what changed. But I don't forget that time in the car. We're driving her to school. And of course, this coincided when I was leaving X-Pro, gonna be unemployed. And of course, this is the day that on the way, she just starts the conversation with, hey, Mom, why didn't we ever shave our head? And you don't say because you didn't want to. You kind of make lots of effusive, like, well, it never felt like the right time. And, I think, we never ever wanted to push you in it. And, kind of doing the song and dance in the car. She's like, well, we should do it. And I was like, whoa, that was unexpected. And we spent probably like another 2 months because she just got resolved. Like, she's like her mom. She got resolved. She was all in from like that second. You could just feel the momentum shift.
The nut doesn't fall too far from the tree.
No, unfortunately not.
Kidding.
And of course, and I never tried to talk her out of it, but I did try to make her like be really realistic about it and be like, hey, look, I mean, number one, if we're gonna do this, we are gonna go all in. So if Mom's going to do it when she's unemployed and trying to find a job, one thing is we're going to make
some
make
nerve,
this work doing big time. And there was a little bit of self-reflection of like, and I knew I wouldn't want to put a lot of energy into it, right? I mean, you remember because you were getting all the emails. So, and that's what I kind of done the first time around of, when I go all in, I try to go all in and make it worth doing. And it was like, well, if not now, this is going to be the best time because you've got the time to give to preparing an event, organizing an event, and making this something that can be really special for your family. Yeah. So ultimately we committed to it.
So let's talk about Ranger real quick. Tell us about what you're excited about with Ranger. I mean, obviously, I think y'all have performed well the last couple of years and really
made an acquisition or two
and done some things.
Absolutely. So what are we excited about? I think we're really proud of this past year. Ranger has, since its inception, had this sort of production-focused theme, right? So we're less a drilling and complete. We have some. We say production-focused with completion upside. It does come with a little bit of downside at times if you take last year, but I think what I get really excited about is I feel like it's final. The thesis is starting to actually demonstrate itself. Last year was not the best year. Heavy rig count down. Ranger performed. We held strong. Wasn't the growth we had wanted for ourselves when everybody thought gas markets are tightening up, everything's going to be continued up and to the right. But the fact that we were able to hold strong, we felt really good about cash flows. So I think there's a lot of pride internally at the organization and excitement about that investment thesis, and the reason why we exist. And we feel good about returning value to shareholders and providing great employment for our jobs. We're less cyclically focused. That means we're going to have to lay off less people when times get really bad. And so I think just the sheer proving out the business model has felt more prevalent now than ever. And that's exciting because then it gets you excited about what you can do with that, right? So it's really starting to come to fruition. The deals were really, really strong deals, timed perfectly. Can't take any credit. I came along after them. But I think have really changed the complexion of the company, have created much more vibrancy in the company, created really investability. And this was really us as well as our contemporary peer group. But well services, which had been long kind of forgotten and cast aside service lines, has now been, it's almost proved out the story of consolidation.
It really has. I was going to say.
I mean, it's the one service line that and we talk consolidation so much, but you could do a case study on well services and go look 4 or 5 years ago at the number of players and this and that. And we're not where we need to be, I think is what we'd argue. But when you look at where we were to where we are and the amount of returns we've been able to start to provide and things like that, it really gets you excited about what else could be held for the rest of oil field services, and particularly in U.S. onshore.
Well, let's back up.
When they first came public, the idea was just to aggressively consolidate.
Yeah.
And then the first couple of years, kind of nothing happened.
Yeah, right.
But it didn't happen anywhere else within the other workover rig companies either.
Yeah.
But I think, like I say, the bankruptcies helped a little bit. Trading of assets have helped a little bit. But y'all have become like drilling contractors. There are 3 big premium drilling contractors.
Yeah.
It's consolidated to the point that you're actually starting to see market power in what you do.
Yeah.
But I want to back up a little bit. I mean, yes, the some of those transactions occurred prior to you coming there, but I think the one mistake a lot of people make is that it's easy to go buy something. It's another thing to integrate it. And it's another thing beyond just integration to say, okay, let's take stock and do an assessment of where we are versus where we need to be. And without talking too outside of school, I think y'all, you and Stuart, Justin, your team, address that pretty aggressively and are continuing to look at ways to improve things. And I applaud you for that because I think if you look at some of the failed strategies in the past, people have been good at bolting stuff together, but they've not really done a good job in really facing the music or running to the bullets and addressing some of the things that need to be addressed and sometimes are hard to address.
And keeping the core culture.
Yeah. Right. No, I think that's fair. And look, there's nothing that a CEO and CFO kind of want to do more than get a deal done because it's fun, it's exciting, it's adrenaline producing. So you almost always kind of want to do that. But to your point, if you leave behind your business, it's all going to be for naught at the end.
Right.
And I do think Stuart and I have a keen sense of not doing that because we've seen it, we've lived it, right?
Right.
And so I think one of the things we want to make sure of is always, I kind of reference the employee experience, is always making sure we're using, you could call it both sides of your brain, but try to be as internal. If we lose, I tell Stuart, and he believes it wholeheartedly, but we are always reminding each other, we can't look too much out. We can't forget about running a great business. we cannot forget about running a great business. As much as we want to grow our business and be strategic and do the next deal, which of course we want to do that, we cannot take our eye off the ball of we have 2,000 people to take care of. We have a vibrant business model we're already running, and shareholders are like, we can't ever lose the core. And so
just to do another deal.
Another deal.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear, because I think, to my point earlier, there are a lot of folks that do that, and at the end of the day, when people take stock, they realize, well, that was a lot of effort, a lot of time and energy and capital, and they don't have anything to show for it.
Yep. Yeah.
After 35 years as an analyst, I think I've seen that happen maybe once or twice.
Have you ever given anybody any hard times about that, or asked any questions?
Me,
about that?
no. I always ask really easy questions that people were glad to hear.
And no one ever, all of those people, many of these people, consummate professionals, right?
Oh, yes.
But it's easy to think you've got it. Well, it's okay now. And that to me is, I'm probably internally too much of the naysayer at times. But it's easy to take for granted that, okay,
I think you're dead right.
I can tuck it away and think you've got the internal situated to focus on the external. But never take it for granted, and always being on top of it is super critical to, I think, any organization. No CEO thinks they're neglecting their business.
They
No
compartmentalize
CFO thinks,
it. They compartmentalize
yeah,
it.
you think
everybody's
you got it.
happy. The business is fine. I can put that on the shelf.
Yep.
It's static now.
Yep.
And I'll go address this other thing. And that is never static.
Yeah. Well, and I'm almost paranoid. It probably is the one area where I create tension unnecessarily at times because I'm almost paranoid about, do we still have everything tucked away internally?
I refer to it as a healthy level of paranoia, which I utilize in my own business. It frustrates people, but I think it's not a bad attribute to have.
Fair enough.
As long as it doesn't let it get to you.
Absolutely.
If it does get to you, go do something about it.
Yeah.
Makes it easy.
So this has been a great conversation, and we literally could talk with you all day long. But I know you've got a company to run. One of the things we like to ask our guests before they leave us is if they had any advice they would ever have liked to have given themselves at a younger age, or to your children or colleagues, or even our listeners. Any words of advice or thoughts that you'd like to share?
I think one of the things that I sort of wish is, and we've talked about the fact that I'm kind of an all-in person, but I haven't been that way forever. And I sort of in some way wish earlier in my career or earlier in my life, I would have been a more all-in person and been less hesitant and tentative. So it's a little bit of, always be mindful of your surroundings, and it's not recklessness, because I don't think I'm a reckless person either. But know who you are. Spend time. I spent a lot of time in self-reflection, 10 years, once I was well into my 30s. That then started realizing kind of who I was and started a little bit more of a path of self-discovery. But spending that time more in your formative years of identifying who I am and who do I want to be in the world. It's hard when you're that young. But it's kind of a little bit of enjoy the ride, go in all, go in more, all in more, take a few more risks.
Sure.
But honestly, I feel so blessed in so many ways. I kind of come back to, you do you. Just figure out what that is and what that means to you. And if you let yourself guide you, good things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen.
And it'll be fun along the way.
And yes, never forget to have fun along the way.
Never forget to have fun along the way.
That's good.
Thank you, Melissa.
Oh, thank you guys. I've so treasured being here. It's been great.
I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to having you on again sometime.
Sure.
So appreciate you all joining us on the Oilfield 360, and we look forward to our future guest that will be joining us. And we've got Thrive next week.
Next week.
Week after next.
Couple
Week
weeks,
after
yeah.
next, yeah. So
Looking forward to that as well.
yeah. We got a good lineup of speakers and quite a few folks registered, and it'll be another good year. I can't believe it's already February.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, guys.
The Oilfield 360 podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: Locked In Global Energy and Marine, uncommonly independent. Locked In is the world's largest privately owned insurance broker and risk finance advisor. Locked In's global energy expertise is centered in Houston and represents the largest concentration of energy specialists, clients, and experiential knowledge in the upstream, midstream, and downstream segments of the oil and gas industry. Visit lockedin.com for more information. Upright Digital. Upright Digital specializes in partnering with your business to maximize marketing efficiencies. We have a deep understanding of people, their needs, motivations, behaviors, as well as the technologies that enable brands in many industries to utilize what is available in a changing digital landscape. Find us online at uprightdigital.com.